February 22, 1943. Somewhere, over the frigid waters of the North Sea, a crippled American bomber struggles home. Its mission is over. Its bombs are gone. But its real battle is just beginning. Inside the shuddering fuselage of the B-17F Flying Fortress, 10 men face a terrifying reality. Their aircraft is too damaged to bail out, and the only runway ahead is a deadly, unforgiving slab of concrete. This is the story of desperation, innovation, and cold courage under fire. This is the story of the pilot who landed his bomber with no wheels. Our story begins with the 303rd Bombardment Group, the Hells Angels, based at RAF Molesworth in England. At the controls of the B-17F, serial number 4229649, nicknamed the Duchess, was 23-year-old First Lieutenant John Jack K. Kidd, a capable and steady pilot from Cleveland. Ohio Kidd and his crew were not rookies. They had already survived several harrowing missions into the hellish German flak and fighter defenses. Their target on that Monday morning was the German naval base at Wilhelmshaven, a fortress of anti-aircraft guns. The mission was brutal. As the Duchess approached the target, the sky erupted in a blizzard of black flak bursts. Shrapnel tore through the aircraft's thin skin. The hydraulic system was punctured, its fluid bleeding into the slipstream. Yet they pressed on, dropped their bombs, and turned for home. But the true extent of the damage was hidden. The vital hydraulic lines that controlled the landing gear, the flaps, and the brakes had been severed. Little did Kidd and his co-pilot, Second Lieutenant Walter A. Maxwell, know, as they nursed the wounded bomber over 300 miles of hostile sea, that they were flying a $300,000 glider. The first sign of catastrophe came as the English coastline emerged from the haze. Co-pilot Maxwell, following the pre-landing checklist, reached for the lever to lower the landing gear, a normal routine action. He pulled the lever. Nothing happened. Pause. The hydraulic pressure gauge read 0. The primary system was dead. Maxwell immediately engaged the manual hand pump backup. For agonizing minutes, he worked the pump, his muscles straining. The engineer, Staff Sergeant Robert G. Campbell, climbed down into the nose wheel well to report. His voice over the interphone was grim. No movement. The gear was stuck up. Panic began to flutter at the edges of the crew compartment. Kidd, his voice calm but firm, ordered the engineer to try the emergency release system, cables designed to physically unlock the gears, allowing gravity to drop them. Campbell yanked the release handles. A metallic clunk was heard, but the wheels did not fall. The damage from the flak had physically jammed the mechanisms. By 1400 hours, the Duchess was circling Molesworth, a wounded bird unable to roost. Kidd reported his emergency to the tower. The atmosphere in the bomber grew thick with dread. They were low on fuel. Bailing out over the crowded English countryside was a deadly risk for his crew and civilians below. Ditching in the icy North Sea meant almost certain hypothermia and death within minutes. They were trapped in their own aircraft. Sound of bomber engines idling. Narrator. On the ground, the emergency transformed the airfield. Fire trucks and ambulances, their red lights flashing, raced to line the main runway. Foam trucks laid down a slick chemical path. The control tower cleared all traffic. Every eye on the base was fixed on the lumbering fortress, making slow, ominous circles above. The station commander, Colonel Kermit D. Stevens, came to the tower. He offered a stark choice over the radio, bail out or attempt a belly landing. Kidd polled his crew. The vote was unanimous. They would stay with the ship. They would ride the Duchess down. The moment of truth had arrived. Lieutenant Kidd began his final approach. The runway, normally a place of safe return, now looked like a slab of stone. The standard procedure was jettisoned. With no hydraulics, the flaps could not be lowered, meaning a much faster, harder landing speed. With no brakes, stopping would be impossible. And with no landing gear, the 10-ton bomber would have to meet the earth with its bare aluminum belly. Narrator. Kidd ordered everything loose thrown overboard to reduce fire risk. Guns, ammunition, flak jackets, even personal gear were tossed from the hatches. He told the crew to assume crash positions. Backs braced against bulkheads in the radio room and waist sections. Away from fuel lines, the cockpit was a scene of intense focus. Kidd's hands were steady on the controls. Maxwell monitored the failing engines. The only sound was the labored roar of the remaining engines and the pounding of 10 hearts. They were committed. A belly landing in a B-17 was notoriously deadly, often resulting in a catastrophic fuel fire or the aircraft cartwheeling into a fireball. What happened next was a masterpiece of airmanship born of sheer will. Kidd knew the textbook was useless. He had to write a new one in real time. His approach was perfect, long, flat, and slow, bleeding off every possible ounce of speed. He lined up with the foam-streaked runway. As the concrete rushed up, he cut the throttles entirely, silencing the engines. The silence was deafening. Then, impact. The shriek of tearing metal filled the world as the bomber's belly slammed onto the runway. A torrent of sparks, hundreds of feet long, erupted behind them like the tail of a comet. The fortress shuddered violently, threatening to snap apart. Kidd and Maxwell fought to keep the nose up, preventing it from digging in and somersaulting. The aircraft slid down the runway with an ear-splitting, grinding wail completely out of control, rotating slowly to the left, and then it began to slow. The friction of metal on concrete was doing what the brakes could not. But another danger emerged. The right wing, low from the rotation, dipped and caught the ground. For a terrifying second, it seemed the aircraft would flip, but the slowing speed and Kidd's counter-control kept it level. With a final groaning protest, the Duchess slid off the far end of the runway, through a fence, and into a soft, muddy field, and stopped. Pause, narrator. For a second, there was silence. Then the voice of the radio operator crackled. "Everyone okay?" Miraculously, one by one, the crew reported in. No fire, no explosion. 10 men, alive. The crash trucks descended, spraying foam on the smoldering belly. The crew scrambled out of the hatches, stumbling onto the solid, blessed ground embracing in sheer, disbelieving relief. The aftermath was a testament to their skill and luck. The B-17 was a write-off, a hangar queen stripped for parts, but it had given its last full measure to save its crew. Not a single man suffered more than bruises and shock. The mission had been a success, the target struck, and now, against impossible odds, every man had returned. For his extraordinary piloting skill, exceptional courage, and calm command in the face of almost certain disaster, First Lieutenant John K. Kidd was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. His citation reads, "In part, by his outstanding skill and determination, he brought his crippled aircraft and crew safely back from a mission over enemy territory." But the true legacy of that day in February 1943 is not just in a medal or a report. It's in the 10 families that remained whole. It's in the countless subsequent crews who studied this landing, learning from Kidd's improvised technique. It stands as a stark example of the razor's edge between tragedy and survival in the air war over Europe, where a pilot's cool head and a crew's unwavering trust could defy physics and fate.